Hello, what's up, everybody? We got George in first. So George and Giovanni in a close second right after that. How's it going, guys? This is part 13 of the Bandai M61A5 main battle tank, 135th scale. And it seems like this project is droning on and on. It's an armored. It's a lot of weathering. It's a lot of stuff. So it's taking its time. But we're getting there slowly. I had to make a couple of repairs the last couple of days. Must have when I was putting the wheels back on, and I'll show that in a sec. But when I was putting the wheels on, either applying too much pressure on the other side, trying to hold the model while putting the other wheels on, I cracked a couple of the control arms that basically hold the wheels on, and I had to re-glue them. Happy effing Wednesday. Yeah, I know, right? It is a happy effing Wednesday. I mean, I've been struggling with sciatic pain and neck issues and pinched nerves and things in the last few weeks, and it's just like this is part of the process of getting older, I guess, and the work that I do. What's up, Julius? How you doing? So my fingertips are always a little tingly now and then, and so I'm trying to get a good chiropractor lined up and see if they can do something. But in the meantime, we're going to keep tracking on this track work. Tracking on the track work. We're going to do some track work today. So let's go down. What's up? Let's see, Julius is saying hi. So we'll go down to the bench here, and still got a little bit of weathering to do. We've got some pigment to put on the bottom here, but you can kind of see where I have finished off. Let me go to the close-up, make it a little bit better. Still got some to do on the front and work under here. I'm not going to be too much underneath. Again, we're probably not going to see this very much, but let me turn this on its side so you can kind of see where the wheels are. A couple of these, like I said, I had to do a repair on this side. I haven't done any pigment on the wheels on the other side. So I'm going to finish that, but then I'm also going to be starting on the tracks. Julie's got a question here. Let's see, or a statement actually. And totally relate to the way you're feeling. I did something to my back today and the first day of bed since, oh gosh. Yeah, what's up, Nick? Nick's in the house. How you doing? Yeah, Julius, it sucks, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know. The kind of work we do, it's just in your body. And I played hard as a kid, adulthood, all this stuff. Do all these things, and then you start getting in your 40s and 50s, and all of a sudden everything just hurts all the time. So, but this side is essentially done and dusted as far as the pigment side, I think. But I still have to do the tracks. But most of the entirety of this upper section is not going to be seen. Hope you're doing better, George says. Yeah. Hope we're all doing better. So I'm just going to pop this on just so we can kind of see what is still exposed. So when the side piece is on, you can see that just pretty much the lower half of the wheels. I also did some chipping on the gears or the drive gears of the front and rear drive gears. So there's a little bit of chipping because as things are rotating and meshing in and out, you're going to get some chip paint. So I did a little bit of that too, and then I added some dusting to that. So the top, again, is pretty much done. The bottom, I still have a little bit to kind of blend everything in. I've got to also do more work on the front here as far as right around where the gears are and the wheels and do some more dusting there. But what I'm going to work on primarily today is just finishing up. I'm going to dust these wheels and put some on this side. You can see the wheels have not been done. They're just freshly clean, except for the small rollers at the top. Those are already attached. Crazy LC, what's going on, dude? Or KZ, sorry, buddy, I said that wrong. How's it going? Oh, another thing, I'm trying something. I dropped Twitch from the selection of streams. I've got 3 locations this is being broadcast to: Facebook, YouTube, and now I'm trying Kick. So StreamYard just picked up Kick, so I decided to see how that works out. We're streaming on Kick. We'll see if anybody chimes in, if anybody follows after this. We'll see. Mostly it seems like gamers and a lot of weird other things going on, but we'll try it out. If not, I can always drop that one too and we'll try something else. Anywho, Wasn't this tank appeared in MS Igloo? Yes, you are correct. I believe I was sent a video of that, and I think it was the Igloo you're talking about, and this tank was in that, and that's where I got a lot of the inspiration for the color of this. I wasn't going to go with a desert scheme because of the Abrams tank I just finished not too long ago. So I decided to go with this more of a gray scheme. One thing I can do real quick here is I will just plop the turret on so we can see again what this looks like for those that may not have seen it, what this looks like with the turret in place. And then we'll flip it back up on its side here. So yeah, I like the way this, I mean, on camera, everything looks really, really bright. It's not quite as bright in person. It's a little dull, more subdued as far as the color contrast. I still have to reattach the hatch. I still got the guns and stuff I got to put on there. And then I'm also going to tack down those tow cables on the sides. Never heard of Kick. Yeah, it's because it's new, George. It's something brand new. It's a relatively new live streaming service. And so I decided to just try it out. I opened an account, and I couldn't do a lot of functionality on my phone. So I actually opened up a page on my laptop, my laptop here. And you've got to basically set up your profile on the laptop. You don't have a lot of the functionality yet on your mobile device. So as far as like creating a profile picture, creating a bio, stuff like that, it's just I did a real basic thing just to check it out and see. It seems like most of the streams I've seen on there are a lot of gamers, just kind of like Twitch as well. But I kept getting weird comments from Twitch users, and I was just getting tired of it. So I decided to drop that one at the last minute. In fact, when I created this live stream, I already had Twitch on there, and then I just updated it, edited it, dropped it off, and added Kick. So glad you douche Twitch. It wasn't that big a deal. It's just I just don't care for the absurd kind of comments. There's just no need for it. You know, there's a bunch of trolling going on. It's kind of stupid. Not interested. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna pop this back off. Let's just take this off real simple. Set it aside. I'm gonna lift it up here. Again, for those that also may not have seen this, I will show this off. Might as well make sure these lights still work. So what you've got is a little battery holder here, just for my LEDs, and that turns on my headlights. So it looks like everything still works. Thank God. I haven't tested them in a while, so that's good. But if we really want to see this, I can turn off the overhead, make it a little bit darker. There we go. We can see the headlights. Done with fiber optics, a single LED. What's up, Phil? Oh, Artiste is back in. How you doing, Phil? Good to see you again. I mean, whatever. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up the comments, but I'm also fidgeting over here on this project, so try not to miss something that comes up in the chat. Okay, info, yeah, okay, yep, old school. Hey, everybody saying hi. Good to see everybody as always. Thank you guys for joining in. So, real quick, like again, I'm just gonna dust these wheels real fast. This is pretty simple. I'll add some of the light or medium earth, We'll do that first, and then I'll touch it with a little bit of dark earth after that. After I've got the fixer on there, I'll just use the pigment brush and kind of just dab it, and that will sprinkle some of that darker color on. And yeah, that's right. Actually, no, this is the one I use. It is the dusty brown that I start with. And I'm just going to go around these wheels real fast. It doesn't take much to do these. It's pretty quick. It's just a matter of just laying a little bit of dirt in, which would normally get into those little bolts and grooves of the wheel. And then I'll go back through it with some of the fixer. And mostly just let the fixer just kind of fall in there and work like a penoline color. It'll just kind of, you put a drop in there, let it work its way around. I don't have to stir this up and blend it much. Oh, there's some reason I'm missing my comments here. What the heck? Why are you doing that? There we go. Also the D50 little tank that can change into mobile suits. Too bad Bandai doesn't produce a Xeon. Yeah, there's quite a few. I'm going to put that on screen so everybody can see that, because people that comment, I don't know if you guys can see every single comment like I can. So the ones that will interest everybody, I try to put on screen so everybody can see that. It is, yeah, there is quite a few tanks. At least, you know, we also saw that in the Requiem for Vengeance series that came out on Netflix, and it would be nice to see some of these other tanks get a little bit of glory for in the plastic model. I mean, but again, it's Bandai's only going to produce what's popular enough to sell a kit. You know, we can say all day long, yeah, we'd like to see this, but if only 10 of us want to see one of these kits, it's not enough for them to build or actually make a mold and produce something. All right, so that was really quick just to dust those off. Now, again, like we've been doing the past few weeks here, we're just going to add, I'm switching over to this new bottle of it's a pigment fixer from AK. It's the same stuff that I had before, but this is a new bottle. The other one was pretty tired. It almost you don't have a fixer medium, any substitute? Oh gosh, good question. Let me put that one on screen. What would work in its place? That is a really, really good question. I don't need this. I got hair in there. A little piece of lint. Get that out. Gosh, I imagine. Gosh, what would work? I mean, the pigment will stay on there by itself. It's just going to, you know, not be as secured. It'll be a little dusty and might eventually, you know, diminish. But gosh, I don't know. That's a real good question. I don't know if there is any other substitute, because this is basically a clear enamel. If you can find it's pretty thin too. I think maybe if you can find a clear enamel, you know, just any kind of clear coat, but it'd have to be pretty thin. This stuff you can see as I dab it here, it kind of runs into all the spaces, almost like a panel line wash. I'll get one. Just curious. No problem there. There's also, let's see, KZ is saying there's also Hair Dwarf Xeon Experiment. Oh, we're talking about tanks again. Sorry, guys. Going back and forth. Developed in combat MS Igloo. I have to watch the rest of Igloo. Somebody sent me the video of it, and so I could see this tank in the beginning. It's a pretty cool intro. These guys race around the desert, taking out Zaku's. It's pretty nice, but I have to sit down and watch the whole thing. It's just kind of difficult at times with everything else that's going on in life and at work and family and all that other stuff. It's just kind of hard sometimes to find the time to sit down and binge the whole show. Although I do get time in the mornings sometimes before work, so maybe I could do it then. I leave to drive in pretty early just because I like to get ahead of the traffic. And so I do have time in the parking lot as I'm waiting for work. Okay, I'm going to, now that I have the fixer on there, I'm going to switch over to the dark earth, and then I'm going to just kind of flick this brush. You'll see what I'm going to do here in a second. I'm just going to get a tiny bit on the brush, and then just kind of, this will sprinkle on some of that dark earth while these are still wet. Haven't used VMS products but many modelers rave about them. Let's put that on screen. You guys got great questions today in the comments. There we go. I have not used VMS, so I have no input on that. Unfortunately, I do not know anything about them. I haven't really heard anybody raving or saying they didn't like them. I'm sure whatever info you've got is probably accurate, depending on who the modelers that you've been talking to or listening to. I primarily use Mr. Color paints, lacquers, some Tamiya enamels for doing certain things like reverse washes or stuff like that. But then I also use some AK and MIG stuff for weathering. So I'm just sprinkling on some of this darker color, and then we're going to switch over to the track wash here once we get that done. All right, let's see what I've missed here. Sorry, guys. For those that have heard, you can try an odorless enamel thinner. Try it on something safe. So you're talking about using that as a fixer? I imagine. I guess. Yeah, I guess kind of. If that's what you're talking about, George. The fixer is an enamel product that dries and clings everything together. I guess enamel thinner might work, but I think to me it seems like it would evaporate away mostly and not actually stick as much as well as like the fixer. Yes, as a fixer. Okay, it's worth a try. Certainly, it'd be worth a try. George also says he's used VMS top coats and really likes them. Well, that's good to know. Good old school. Everybody's having awesome time here. So, all right. Let's see. Let's get to the tracks here. So what I've got is, let me shake this up a little bit. I've been keeping this shaken up while I was waiting for the string to start. But this is AK track wash, and it's like a kind of a dark, a little bit rusty brown maybe. But it's good to soak into between the tracks, and then I'm going to go back over it with some of the other dusting effects, some of the pigments and stuff, to enhance that. Just similar to the way I did the fixer here, which is clear, but I'm going to actually use the track wash to stick whatever pigments I can to the tracks. While these are drying, I can go ahead and flip this over, and we're just going to start from the front here and just work our way back. Now that these are on, the tracks are not coming off again. Everything's on. I don't want to try to risk damaging anything. I did have a couple of wheels break off on me, and I don't know if that's from the enamel, the fixer or not, because I was thinking maybe it was acting kind of like a panel line accent color. If you get too much in there, that's also enamel based, can make the plastic a little brittle. I don't know. I think it was just because I was pressing these wheels on and I was holding to the side and using, because there's actually poly caps inside of each one, so it was very hard to kind of push them on. Very, very tight fit, and I might have just put too much pressure on the other wheels on the other side as I was pushing those on, and just broke them right on, or just cracked them, and then they eventually just fell off in my hand when I was trying to assess the damage, and then it turned into a little bit of a mess. So I had to repair a couple of those. No big deals there. Relatively easy fix. Let's see. I'm trying to get this. I'm kind of crowded on the bench here, but I'm trying to get. There we go. I'm trying to keep my computer mouse in a place that's accessible, but so I'm going to pop this down just so I can angle this. I don't need to worry about doing the top of this track all the way along the underside here, because that's not going to be seen. In fact, most of it's going to be covered up when I put the cover or the side covers on. So I'm using a different brush, and I'm going to go through kind of just down the middle, because each one of these tracks, they have like rubber pads, as do any tank. There's actual hard rubber pads in between the mechanical linkages of everything. So I'm really just trying to get this wash to go in between all those areas, and then I can use some of the dust effects after that. And then I'm going to also make sure once I put on the dust and the pigment, I'm going to go back in. In fact, I may have to thin this a little bit. I think it's a little bit thick. Yeah, it still feels relative. It still sounds really thin. BMS tough find, but Michigan Toy Soldier carries most of it. Okay, well that's good. If their website's working, I've gone on there a couple times and their website was being finicky sometimes. So I'm just going to go in, and this is also it's not just a wash. It actually has a little bit of grime to it. So as it dries, it does it, or as you apply it, you can see that it's almost, I thought it was needed to be thin because it's a little clumpy, but I forgot that it does have kind of a dirty grit to it, which enhances this. So it works as a wash, but it also makes these look dirty and gritty. And this is going to be not a tedious process, but it will take quite a bit of time to get into all these little grooves. One thing I want to make sure I do tonight, though, before I let it sit overnight, is I will go back and take a Q-tip with some enamel thinner and clean off the pads, the actual rubber pads, so those still appear black. I want the wash to stay in between the links, and then, but I also want those rubber pads to show out too. And if I leave it the way it is, some of it's kind of covered up with this wash. And it's okay to be a little bit dirty. It's not really too big a deal, but I just want those details to come out as I add this track wash. It's hard to kind of see the color, but it is brown. It's kind of a brownish color. And I'm just basically doing a grid. There's actually in each link section, there's 4 pads. You got 2 large pads on the outer edges, and then a thin one that goes kind of across the middle, and then a smaller trapezoid shaped one kind of dead center. So all those will have to be cleaned up. And after I do a little bit of this, I'll go back and I'll show you what I'm going to do with the Q-tip. And that's just to kind of take off the excess on the pads so they kind of highlight that. And as this dries, it almost looks like a dark, kind of muddy color to it. And because I don't have to do too much on the bottom here, the tracks aren't going to be seen. I just want to make sure that I get a majority of the area that will be at least to be able to visibly see from a model standpoint. I doubt anybody's going to be picking this up and looking underneath it. I'll do most of the tracks, but to save product, I'm not going to kill myself for doing every single one along the bottom run, except for the top side of it where you will see it between the rollers. Of course, I want to do that too. But before I flip this up, I'll clean my brush, and then I'll see what taking a Q-tip to this does to kind of clean off these pads and make them give a little bit of color separation from this brown track wash. Lift this up. I gotta see what I'm doing here. Got that pretty good there. Let me put this on. Put the lid on here, and I'm going to clear my brush here, and then we're going to switch over to the enamel thinner so I can do a little bit of cleanup. It's kind of almost doing this like a reverse wash. We're going back over the top, the highest points. It's just a Q-tip and some enamel thinner. This is AK's odorless enamel thinner. It's my go-to for panel lines and everything else. So I'm not gonna get a ton of it in here. I just want to get a little bit, get it damp. You can see it on the Q-tip there. We're just going to take off. So I don't want to saturate it. If I get it too wet, then it's just going to go in between. All I want to do is get just enough, kind of take off just that thin layer of track wash off of the rubber pads, so the track wash remains brown in between, but the pads will turn to black because as they rub on the surface, on the ground, they're gonna stay relatively clean unless you're going through mud. I've got to tip this up so I can get the front here. It doesn't have to be perfect either, because again, this is a wash, so whatever dirt stays behind it will look fine. I'm just taking a majority of it off just to make sure those pads don't just look completely covered in the track wash. They're a little bit. I'll give that a second here. I'm going to go do the other side here. We'll see what it looks like when it dries. When it dries, it's going to lighten up a little bit. When it's wet, it's like anything else. It's going to appear slightly darker. But yeah, I guess this is kind of like almost like panel line washing. You're just taking the wash off of the top of everything, letting it stay in the grooves. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to cut the end of this off. As with any of these Q-tips, once it gets too much on there, can't use it anymore. So I'll set this aside so we can start doing more of the track wash. All right, I'm actually going to flip it around and do the back. So what I did is I just basically went down to the point where this is laying flat on the ground. So I'm not going to worry about wasting a bunch of product to weather basically this 6 inches, roughly 6 inches of this track. I'm going to do just the parts that are exposed. I can go back later if I really need to, but I think for the sake of time, I'm just going to do the parts that you can actually see once this is sitting on the ground. Although when I flip this over and we start doing the underside, like between the wheels, yeah, those are all going to be done just so, because that's all areas that you can actually see when it's sitting on the ground. So I'm just going to tilt this up like I did the other side. Go back and put some more this track wash in. All right, Julius has a question. Let's put that on screen for everybody to see. Would judges of a model show pick up a kit and look at the bottom to see if it has been weathered to match the rest of the kit? Now, I know George is going to chime in on this because he's probably already seen the question. I would say they're not supposed to. I wouldn't touch somebody's model. If I was judging something, I wouldn't be flipping something over to look at the bottom of it. I know somebody George knows recently had a note left from a judge saying, explain why the color is a certain way. And I don't know if they lifted it up and looked at the bottom of it or whatever, but they shouldn't be picking up anybody's model. I know Dan Salas had a judge pick up a base and try to look at his model at an angle, and it wasn't attached to the base, and one of his small little 1/72nd scale tanks slid off and busted off all the photo etch fenders and stuff, which didn't make him very happy either. Wouldn't make anybody happy. But so that for that reason, and that that's just one reason, but for that reason I would say no, I don't want anybody touching my stuff. If you can rotate it on the table, like if it's on a base or something, if you need to look behind it or something like that, sure, try to get it, look at all angles, but there shouldn't be any reason for you to be picking something up and looking underneath it. So George says IPMS rules technically are that you do not pick up a model and look underneath, but it has been known to happen. That is true. And that's what I was basically, I knew he was going to have a good answer to that, or a good response anyway. Because being a president of a chapter of his own IPMS chapter, I'm sure that kind of stuff comes up in meetings, but yeah, I wouldn't be touching anybody's model. That's the short answer. It's more than enough. Short answer or not, why are you touching somebody's model kit? Why are you picking it up? I mean, stuff happens, sometimes things fall over, I get it, or something like that, model kits. I had somebody knock my Max Valkyrie over and broke off one of the missile pods on the wings at the last IPMS I was at. I started getting text messages because I wasn't around. I don't know what I was doing. I was probably just walking around looking at stuff. Started getting messages going, "Hey man, you need to get back here and check out your Battleroid. He fell over. We stood him back up, but one of the things broke off, and yeah, the last IPMS I was able to go to wasn't a very fun event for little things like that. Were just kind of annoying. Somebody bumps a table and knocks something over. You don't mean to. It happens. But yeah, as far as picking something up, I don't see why. There shouldn't be any reason why you need to pick something up. I mean, if you got somebody that's going to be that, judge that's trying to look underneath to see if you weathered something underneath. I mean, this seems a bit extreme. I don't see why anybody should care whether or not the bottom side of a tank has been weathered or not. And literally count that against you or something. That's just it just seems kind of ridiculous to me. But it goes back to what George said. Nobody should really be touching anybody's model kit, but it does happen. Get it off. There we go. So I'm still working in this track wash in between the rubber pads of these tracks. There's quite a few little spots, on the edges, kind of going to get into these deep grooves. Then I'm going back over later with Q-tip and the enamel thinner, and that's just to take off this this wash from the top of those rubber pads. And each link section has 4 pads, 2 rather large ones on the outer edges, and then a smaller thin one goes almost all the way across, and then there's like a smaller little trapezoid shape in the center, all for adding increased grip, I guess, on a variety of surfaces, whatever this tank is rolling on. So again, I'm only going to do enough of these tracks that are going to be visible when it's on a table. I still have the figures to do. I still have the rest of the guns to paint. Got a chunk there. I had to get rid of that. I had like a rock in here. George says he recommends that you secure your model to the base, make it easier to move around. That is true. Just depends though on, like my tank is not mounted to the base. The Abrams tank that I built, I didn't glue it down. I glued down everything else around it, but that way I can, for me, that was easier to transport it that way just because of, the base is a certain size, and I just wanted to make sure I could get it onto the, actually, let me do a couple more here. I need to go this far down, I don't think, but yeah, it's pretty much underneath. I'm going to stop right there. I went a little further on the other side, but I don't need to. All right, let's wash out this brush. What's this? What are we talking about here? As a judge, I hate Gundam stands. Yeah, they're flimsy. That is true. They are kind of flimsy. Nick says the rubber pads are so you get to smoke while burnouts. Oh, I get it. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing burnouts on the tank, but hey, anything's possible. So far, this is the first episode that is where we're using Kick streaming service called Kick. We'll see. StreamYard now can broadcast to Kick, so we're going to see if anything good comes out of it. We'll find out. If I start getting a bunch of weird comments again, like I did with Twitch, well then that one will go the way of Twitch as well. All right, back to the enamel thinner here. We're going to just take off excess track wash. Like I said, I am going to go back over this with, and I'll probably have to do this again to get rid of some of this product on these pads. But I'm going to go over it with the pigments after this. I just wanted to use this track wash as kind of a base color in between all of these pads, and then I'll go back in with the pigments to kind of give it a more realistic kind of dusty look. And I probably won't even need to use a fixer on it because there's so many little grooves and things that the stuff is just going to kind of cling in there as well, pretty well, without having to do too terribly much to it. I'm just using this enamel thinner now to take off the excess track wash, because I want the pads to kind of remain clean, even though they're going to be dusty, dirty, but they don't need to be. We're not driving through the mud, it's not going to be covered in mud on this thing. So that's pretty good. It actually looks quite nice. Once it starts to dry, you can kind of see, gotta add a little bit more dust on the inside of this fender too. There's a couple of spots where I thought I had enough pigment, but I missed putting pigment down on the inside of that fender. So obviously it's not gonna look right. Gotta get it dirty. Okay, now that I have these front and rear sections done, I'm going to, or at least the track washing, I'm going to just roll this onto the side here and see kind of where I have to go next, if I need to use track wash or just pigment. I don't know. Kind of wondering how many different products I need to use on this. These tracks kind of have or at least is that wheel on all the way? Yeah, I guess it is. Or is that one that broke? Might be one that snapped off. Yeah, I think that was one that broke. I was trying to get these wheels all lined up. One of them, two of them on this side actually cracked on me and fell off. I had to re-glue them. I think I'm going to add a little more dust to these wheels. These are dry now, but I want to go back over them with a little bit of fixer and some of this, some more of this dusty brown, just to match the other side. It's still a little damp, so I'm just going to put a little bit on here and go back over it with the fixer brush. Okay. Let's see, I need fixer, which is, where did I put it? Oh, there it is. Gotcha. Tank donuts. George wants to see tank donuts. That would be interesting. I'm just going to take a little bit off of these. I want these wheels to be dirty, but not, I mean, they wouldn't be completely covered in dirt. So you can see how when I add this fixture to it, it starts to bleed out. I'm going to have to take a little bit of this off, but that's okay, because I can control it now that I've got a little bit of that liquid on there. I can pull some of that back off. A little too dark, so I'm just taking some of that pigment back out to lighten them up. So that should even out the front, or both sides. That's not front and rear, but I mean left and right. So we look at this side. I mean, these are dry too, so they're going to be a little bit lighter in color because the pigments are still a little wet. That'll balance out. And if not, then I could just add a little bit more, take a little, to balance it out and make both sides look even. If I do get a little bit color variance there from left to right. I'm just going to take another drop of this. Now that I've taken all the pigment off, just by dabbing a little bit of this fixer right in the middle, it will kind of blend out any little brush strokes. There. I have to let that dry. Okay. All right, let's see. Still trying to figure out. I think I'm just going to use pigment because I'm looking at the track wash and it's pretty dark. I could see a need for putting it on the bottom of the tracks, but on the top, it's mostly these rubber. It's either rubber or steel pads that the rollers run on. I'm guessing it's rubber. Yeah, let me just take a little bit of this dust. I'm going to go with medium earth. Let me just try this out real quick here. Oh, shit. You guys see that? Just snapped off right in front of you guys. I'm telling you, I think it's this enamel, this fixer. I might have gone a little too heavy on it because these things are so fragile, and this one just literally snapped off as soon as I touched it. So I'm going to be real careful. I'm going to have to re-glue this. So this is going to come off. I can tell you already it's going to come off in my hand just like that. Fortunately, I didn't glue these wheels on, so I can take the wheel off and glue this arm back in place just like that. But we'll have to let that sit, and hopefully I don't snap off anymore. It might have been when I was adding the fixer to the pigment that you see down in the wheel well here, basically. It caused it to be a little bit brittle. Fortunately, though, at least this area is covered up by the wheels, so it's just not going to be really exposed. You won't see this break, and I can always go back and dirty it up, which will cover up that seam or that break where the break is. Gosh, what I did was just leaned on it a little too hard. So we're learning something here, boys. We can't use too much of any enamel product really with a model kit, whether it be a panel line accent color or some of this fixer, because it just makes the plastic brittle if it sits on one spot for too long. So I'm gonna let that sit. I'm gonna leave this wheel off. I got pigment all over my hands here because all that dust, anything that doesn't stick to the model goes onto the workbench. Your hands are going through it all. Let's see here. I got another question, maybe. Old school. Always wondering about that. I just wound up super gluing to a foam base. All came out pretty good for the first try. Yeah, I mean, you can mount something on a base. Or glue it to a base. Sometimes just transporting it's just not feasible, but sometimes it works out where you can. So I gotta let that dry. I will be able to put this wheel back on, but I can't touch it right now. So with that, let's see here. I want to be careful now. Now I'm worried about snapping any more of these off. So I can see the two that I had to fix on the other side. This is the one side I hadn't done yet, and it just shows up that now it's, they're brittle. So as long as I don't, put too much pressure on those control arms, essentially they won't snap. I have to be careful. Let's see if we can get some pigment in here. So let's go back to the medium earth. This is where I was going to start before I had that little scary moment there. And I'm just going to light amounts. Just going to go in and and dust the inside of these tracks. Yeah, see, I'm not going to need to add any fixer to this. I think this will look nice if you look at front there just by adding that dirt. And I can go back with a Q-tip again and remove a little bit of this if need be, just to kind of highlight that. But dusting those tracks would be pretty easy using this pigment. I'll do a little bit more here, and then I'm going to do an experiment, and I'll take a Q-tip and actually remove some of this, and we'll see if we achieve the effect that we want. It doesn't need to be completely covered either. It can just by going over it with the brush, I'm kind of cleaning off those high areas, and the dust is the pigment's falling in to those recesses, which is where it would collect. That's what I'm going for. All right. All right, just making sure I'm not removing anything with my fingertips. All right, I'm just going to grab another Q-tip here. Actually, let's see. Do I have a fresh one nearby? No. I thought I had some ready to open, but I may have used them all up. Yeah, let me grab a few more here. I thought I had an open package. Where are they? Let me see here. Somewhere I've got an open pack. I know I do. I mean, I can't find it in the next couple seconds. I'll just open a new one, but I was kind of thinking I had. Maybe not. All right, we'll just open a new one. Sorry, guys. Popped out and just back. No big deals, George. No big deals at all. Everybody has to go to the bathroom every now and then, right? I'm going to use these. These are cheaper, but they're a Daiso. They're still a Daiso brand, but they're just like more of a regular Q-tip. They don't have two different sides like the blue ones do. They have one side's a pointed tip, and the other side's a standard round tip. But I've got these other smaller little Daiso Q-tips that are more of a standard kind, but they're still good enough for this part of it. I wouldn't use these for panel lining, but because they might shred a little bit quicker, but these just pop open like that. Yeah, these are Daiso, so they're a compact Q-tip. They don't leave any lint, as much lint behind, but it's good for. It'll work for this because I'm not taking panel lines off. I'm just trying to take some of this dust off. So I'm just going to very carefully, again, oops, what am I doing? I don't need the fixer. I need the enamel thinner. Wow, that almost went bad. Let's see, where's my enamel thinner? Here we go. All right. That's my last bottle of fixer too. I definitely don't want to. As I go along the edges here, I'm just taking off some of that pigment on the top. But you can see like down in the grooves, it's staying in the grooves. So it's almost like doing a panel line type wash. You're just In this case, we're taking off powder. I have to go back, but that looks pretty good. I'll have to go back and touch up the edges, but I might have taken off more than I want. But I've got to I can't put that wheel back on yet. I got to let that one dry. Okay, so that will do the trick. That experiment worked. I'm going to go back to medium earth. We'll just continue doing that. What's up, Julius? Let's help Mike. Oh, thanks, Julius. Clicking that thumbs up button. Yes, thank you so much, Julius. I appreciate the heads up. Let everybody know that. Hit the thumbs up. Put a comment. All those things help. Even if it's just to say hi, that's all you got to do. You don't have to get into a deep, long, drawn-out conversation. Just say, hey, what's up, everybody? And that goes a long way especially with the YouTube algorithm. Goes a long way. So I'm just basically adding a little bit of just very light. I'm not saturating the brush too much. I'm just putting light it just so it gets into those grooves. Then I can go back over with the thinner again, like I did earlier, and just take off a little bit of that on top, and that will leave those. It'll leave the dust in those lower recesses. All the while kind of completing that dusty effect. But it's nice to be able to go back, because if you do oversaturate it, you just go back with the thinner. You can remove a little bit of that, or that dust, that pigment. It doesn't take much just to take a little bit off. Okay, now I've gone the whole edge. You can see how it's pretty bright, especially on camera. It's pretty bright now. So now I can go back and use the thinner and just take that right off. All right, Giovanni's got a question. Sorry, guys. You hit the thumbs down, did you? Oh, well, that's all right, George. No worries there. I have a question without offering anyone, but is this coming from someone that has never weathered a kit? Wait, you have a question without, is it supposed to be offending anyone or offering it? I think I don't know what you're trying to say, Giovanni. But this is coming from someone that's never weathered a kit. Okay, go ahead and ask your question. I got you now. You're not going to offend anybody. Hell. There was a point in our lives, everybody that's ever built a model kit, where it was your first kit or your second kit. None of this stuff happens overnight. Don't worry about. I'm not going to offend anybody. And there's never, like your teachers used to tell you years ago, there's never any bad questions. Just ask away. We'll try to answer as best we can. So now I'm just kind of going back over, just taking a little bit of that dust off. It still stays in the grooves. I like the way that looks. Okay. And with the rest covered up, I don't even need to worry about doing the top part of the track. So I'm going to flip this around. Hopefully I don't bust any more wheels off in the process. Okay, here is the question from Giovanni. Let's go. Is there a point of painting a kit that's going to throw all the pieces of pigment? Wait. Let me start over. Is there a point of painting a kit if you are going to throw all these pigments? Going to throw all these pigments in washes? What do you mean? Let me see if I'm reading that right. Are you saying there's a point in the build where I'm going to use every single one of these in a project? Or is that just autocorrect strikes again, Giovanni? Let me know. It depends on the build. Sometimes I go through a lot of products, and other times I'm only using one or two. I think it's a given that every single build will have a panel line wash of some at some point of some kind and some intensity. This is a tank, so it's going to be heavily weathered, in my opinion, versus something that is, maybe flying around out in space. Maybe not quite as dirty, but it just depends on what you want to make of it. I started out with good intentions, but sometimes like this is turning out to be a lot dirtier than I originally thought it would. I just started adding stuff to it, and then I got to the point where I realized, okay, this is a pretty dirty ass tank, but that's okay. Sometimes it's an evolution. You start out with a concept, and then it graduates and turns into something else. George says, short answer is getting base colors down is important, even if you cover with weathering. Very short answer for tonality. That is a very good point, George. Yeah, sometimes, if we're just talking about the weathering part of a build, yeah, you still have to have a good base to start with. And those are going to be, paint or primer, paint, panel lining. Weathering is always the last thing to go on, I think. You're not gonna weather something first before you panel line it. Just wouldn't look right. I think dust and dirt and grime covers up panel lines and details like that. So if you go back through when I started this kit, we started, basically snapping it together, and then it was paint, and then we went to panel lines. So as far as like the steps involved, weathering is going to be close to the end. Not to say that you depending on the build, that you might go in and weather a section or do something before you have to build something else. You may have to do that. That was kind of like what I had to do with these wheel wells. I wanted to make sure there was a lot of dirt and dust down in here, because it's a lot easier to do that before I put all the wheels and tracks in than it is to try to build all this first and then try to get down in these grooves and without looking like splotchy mess. So there might be a method to it that way, but as far as the order of things, but all right. I want to put these lids on. I'm putting these back on every time I use them, because as soon as I don't, I'm going to knock one over and there's going to be dust, powder everywhere. And I have pigment all over me. But that's all right. It's part of the process. It'll wash off. So great point, George. Again, as always. Let's see. I need a Q-tip here. That's what I was going for. Let me cut the end off of this other side. Okay, and we'll go back in and just going to go back and touch up. Move this out of the way before I knock it over. Okay. There. I think that looks pretty darn good. We need to... Actually, I think I'm good. I think I need a little more pigment, though. I missed a section here just a tiny bit. There we go. All right, now that I've got those inside tracks done, let me put this lid back on the thinner. What's Giovanni saying? Oh, Giovanni says, one day I'll try to do some weathering. It's all right. Everybody's got to, one day you're going to jump in and that'll be the end of it. Can we really trust this George guy? I don't know, George. I don't know, Nick. Maybe a little bit. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. Yeah. We'll see after his Thursday night broadcast. See just how far we can throw him. All right. Now I'm going to flip this back over because I want to. Now that I've done the inside of the tracks, I'm going to go back in. Let's see if I can get this in the middle here. I'm going to go back in and add, as soon as I can tilt this up without knocking stuff over. Okay, I'm going to grab a little bit of this medium earth now. I'm going to go back in and kind of dust these tracks a little bit. And then, after where I'll do the Q-tip again, and I'm going to go very, very light this time. So I got all the track wash in there, and now I'm just really very lightly dusting this just to kind of give it some depth. It's going to still even it kind of muddy, but it's highlighting all those little recesses. That we established with the track wash. What's McAfee trying to do? Get off my computer screen. George says, definitely do it. It's super enjoyable, sometimes frustrating, but fun nonetheless. Yeah, and it's all about experimentation. You can use an old. Here's what I suggest: if you want to try something, don't worry about like a brand. I could see you being a little hesitant, like I got this expensive kit or something I really like, and I don't want to screw it up. It can be a little daunting. Like, wow, what if I make a mistake? What if I really just destroy this thing? So try this one. Get an old kit, something that's really cheap that you have in your backlog. Maybe you don't mind, and use it as a paint mule kind of thing, where you try these new techniques out on it, on something that you don't mind experimenting on. That way, you can even do different things with it. Even if it's not a cohesive build at that point, if you're just trying different weathering techniques, different sections to make it look different, try different things and then pick the best, your favorite, and then just experiment. Then when you're ready, that's what I did when I started airbrushing. I took an old kit that was this old HG or something like that, and I just tried airbrushing on that first before I busted out the nice MG kit or something like that. I took an old kit that wasn't worth a whole lot, and that way, if I make a mistake, hey, well, I made a mistake, but I learned something, So that makes it a little bit easier for you, because I get it when you're trying something new and you're just like, man, I spent all this money. It took me forever to save up for this kit or whatever it is, and then just to make a huge mistake or an error or something like that when you're trying something new, it can be a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Dissuasive, is that a word? Persuasive. You want to try something new, but you don't want to screw it up. You don't want to think of it as a waste. And just try on something that you don't mind. If you do make a mistake, it's not going to be a huge deal. At least, you get to the point where you build your confidence up, and then you can bust out that really nice kit and do it. So, all right. So now we've had a little bit of track, a little bit of dust in between those. I went back over the pads there and cleaned those up again. So now we've got those darker areas, but we've got the dust and dirt in between and the grime in there. So this is starting to look a lot better as far as tracks. The tracks are concerned. So now I'm going to do the back here. Oh, look at that. George is actually agreeing with me. Keep a paint mule on my desk and try different painting and weathering techniques. Yep, that's exactly it. Then you don't have to screw up something new. You know, you just try it out. That's what I did when I was experimenting with the cell shading type painting for the first time. I was using those paint pens. I just took my old it was a MG Hainu, the original 1.0 MG Hainu, and it was already painted. So I just took that out of the case and started using those pens on it, and then try different techniques to experiment with the cell shading. As long as we're talking about models, yeah, I'll always agree with you. You're right. Yeah, politics, something else. Not so much. Wait, what did I miss from? Oh, the Millennium Falcon I painted. The paint I used reacted badly to the paint. Oh no. I think the paint you used reacted badly to the paint you used. The paint became sticky. You talking about maybe the primer? If you don't mind me asking, Giovanni, what did you use as primer, and what was your top coat? What were your paints and stuff? What was it that you actually used? Just so we can kind of get an idea, because I did have the same issue years ago when I was painting a vinyl kit, but that was because of the inherent nature of vinyl, and I ended up using the wrong primer on that, and it never cured. It just stayed tacky all the time. So I'm just curious as to what you might have used. Gaia white primer. What'd you use over the top of it? Gosh, Gaia note stuff is really good too. I can't imagine. Gaia white primer. That shouldn't have been an issue there. It stayed sticky. That's weird. Oh gosh, look at that. First one coming in from Kick. Hello, streamer. I'm a streamer, but here we go. Am I getting spammed already, guys? Let's read this together. Hello, streamer. I'm a streamer, but a verified one with over 9K followers, more audience, and lots of viewers on the Kick channel. I want to partner with someone. Oh, here we go. Verified and grow with. More audience. I'm just trying Kick out for giggles here, guys. So for now, bejesus is I'm gonna say not interested, my friend. Kaiso paint. Anybody know about Kaiso paint? I don't know of it. So unless somebody can chime in and tell me something about it, about that paint, or tell us about it, I'm saying that might be the issue there. If I use any kind of Gaia notes, which I do use Gaia primers, and I do use their clear coats, but I'm using Mr. Color Lacquers over them. Just can't escape it. I know, right? Well, it was worth a shot. It's okay though. Hey, we'll see what happens. This is the first day. We'll see how many people actually watched it. I'm hoping it's, if anything, at least Twitch would give you kind of a summary at the end of every live stream, kind of tell you where the viewers were, who was watching, how many unique viewers you had, whether, I never had a bunch, but it kind of gives you that post live stream update, kind of lets you know where you're at or who was watching and stuff. So hopefully Kick will have something like that too, and they'll be able to say like how many people actually saw this, and we'll see. We'll try it for a few weeks. And like I said, I don't have to select it. Each time I create a live stream on StreamYard, I choose the locations, and it just so happens that because I'm paying for it, I can choose up to 3. So I just chose 3 just for sake of having 3, rather, even though I don't use Twitch all that much. But if it's going to be this kind of crap, yeah, I'll just stay to 2 right now. I don't need the headache of trolls coming in. So does anybody know? It's from Robot Kai brand, or local in Texas. The paint from the bottle is the consistency of mud. You have to thin it a lot. Well, shoot. Yeah, I just don't know if Robot Kai brand works with Gaia notes. Again, I don't have experience in it, so if anybody else in the room does, go ahead and throw a shout out there and let us know what you think. I can't tell you, Giovanni, but it has to be something reacting, a reaction coming from something, from the paint, I think, and the primer. It's the only reason why the paint won't. If the paint remains tacky, there's something going on. It's not bonding correctly to the primer. That's the only thing I can think of. But again, you guys, I'm no expert. If somebody else has a thought, please chime in and let us know what you think. So now what I'm doing is I'm going back over and I'm just dusting off these pads again. Now that I've gone in with pigment, I'm just cleaning off these areas. So now you can really see those stand out even more. All right, so put my lid on here. Okay, so we're down to, we got about 15 more minutes. All right, so now we got the back here. Quite a bit nicer. You can see those areas will, if you're looking at ground level, this is pretty much what you're going to see going under the back of the tank. And if we do the same in the front, so it'll be right about there. So you're only going to see, I think those look quite nice. Tracks on the side. And I will too, because I still gotta flip this over. So I will do a little bit more, maybe on the inside here, just in case, you can look underneath. You might see a little bit on the inside of the tracks, but I'm pretty sure we're looking pretty good as far as that. All right, missing some. Whoops. Gotta get rid of that. Let's see. RG Shin. That's some painting right now. Used Gaia white primer, let it dry a day, painted those parts. Tamiya gloss white. Well, Tamiya is a lacquer-based acrylic, so it should be okay over your Gaia Notes primer. Just looked it up. It's a lacquer paint. It requires heavy thinning. Giovanni, what did you use to thin it? Yeah, that's true. That's a good question there, George. So we're trying to get down to the bottom of this as to why you had a paint reaction like that. It's tough. That's tough. Sometimes it just boils down to the right combination of paint or primer and paint, I mean. And it's like I said, I was doing a vinyl kit. It's actually a Macross kit, Mr. Cover Leveling Thinner. Well, that should, did it thin it fine? Did it work okay? It seemed like it thinned it properly. It didn't gum up or get, I mean, obviously you airbrushed it, right? So did it come out of the airbrush okay? Is that would tell me if it was a reaction between the thinner and the paint, you'd think it would really gum up or something would go on with the airbrush, but and I am struggling with this pinch nerve, guys. Oh, my fingertips get a little tingly, and it's annoying. Trying to just power through it here. Mr. Cover Thinner. That's a tough one. Gosh, Gaia Notes. I mean, Gaia Notes works great with Mr. Color lacquers. It's a lacquer paint. Yeah, I'm still stumped because I know what I use and what works. I know leveling thinner works great with Tamiya acrylics as well for thinning, but yeah, Tamiya is isn't to me a lacquer based acrylic as well, even though it says it's acrylic, but it's lacquer based, I think. Again, I'm no expert. I can't remember. I've been using Mr. Color lacquers for so many years now that I forgot. I forgot how Tamiya is. 1 part paint, 6 parts thinner. Mr. Color leveling thinner. Wow, that's a lot of thinner. But like you said, it's pretty thick stuff. So it's not surprising, huh? All right. Hopefully that arm is going to be fine. I'm going to let that dry overnight before I try to put that wheel back on. But we're getting there. I've also muddied up the hatch here. So I think this will most likely stay in the closed position. It'll be something like that. Because I don't think I'm going to have the driver sitting in the seat. I think I'm going to have him standing on the outside. Because if I do decide to use that Zaku head on some kind of a diorama base, I'm going to have all the crew basically standing outside of the tank rather than operating the tank. And George says, yeah, that's an odd one. Maybe a message to Robot Guy info. Yeah, that's a good idea too. You could try asking the manufacturers for sure and see what they say. But yeah, gosh, and I just don't have any experience using those paints, so I can't even give a good recommendation because I just don't know. I don't have any experience with the product. I'm just going to finish painting the other parts and call it a win. Yeah, there you go. We're still talking about the Falcon, or are you talking about that? What was it that you were painting something else? I think it was. What was it? It was the Falcon, but what was the other kit you were painting? Anyway, hopefully you'll be able to solve it or get through it. You learned something. I know we talked earlier this week about it, and the decals on those Falcons are, I mean, the Bandai decals are usually pretty good. The problem with the Millennium Falcon is there's so many textures and surface features on the kit. So when you try to use a water slide on it, you've got to use a crap ton of softener just to get over some of these little greebles and little things that are on the surface of the kit. Or, and I think Giovanni figured this out too now, it's just like, or you mask it and you just paint it and start, instead of trying to put those odd colored panels on with decals, it's just easier just to mask them and paint them. The Falcon. So it's still tacky to this day. Is that what you're saying, Giovanni? Still tacky, huh? Interesting. Let's go down to let's show you the bench here. So it's still a mess. I got all my pigments and all this stuff. These are all pigments and fixer and glue. And to glue that wheel back on. So I got this guy sitting here. So yeah. Let's see, you got the turret sitting over here on the computer. So that fits back on there nicely. Yeah, it's pretty dirty. It's a little bit darker than I originally, my conceptual idea is a little bit darker and more weathered than I originally intended, but it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, then I'll take that Zaku, maybe open up that Rambo Rao set and see if it's the same scale as one of these Exceed heads. Then I'll just use an Exceed head because I've got several Exceed heads I could use without taking a piece out of that whole kit. I'd rather, if I have to, I'd rather not just piece. The Rambo Rao set's a nice set. I'd rather just build that as its own. But if I've got to, I'll use it for this. Like I said, I'll compare the sizes to an Exceed head. I've got several of those, including even a Dom. But I don't think those are appropriate. But No, it dried, but it looked like thick paint in some areas. And that was after airbrush, huh, Giovanni? That stuff just seems like it's just not airbrush friendly. You know, if you've got to thin it that much and it still came out super thick, yeah, it's tough. I mean, the way I learned, now again, somebody will ask me what my ratios are for thinning. It's never the same. Depends on the color. Yeah. Okay. Um, the way I was taught was when you mix up paint in a jar with thinner, it should coat the glass of the jar to look like vitamin D milk, basically. It should be translucent, but not so thin that it washes away right away, but not so thick that when you're mixing it up, you can't see through it. And, you know, but now I've gotten to the point where I just know the way, even the way it drips off of my stir stick, I know if it's the right, you know, thin, if it's thin enough. And so because each color is different, you know, pigments like white especially is a very hard paint to thin because it just, the pigment is so intense. So it takes a little bit more thinner, but then you can easily over thin it and then you end up not, you know, getting a coverage you want. So each color has to be done separately. You can start with these basic ratios like 50-50 or 1-to-1, you know, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, as you do this, as you start to learn and you start to paint more, you're going to realize that each color is a little bit different and each is going to take a little more thinner or a little less thinner to thin properly for your airbrush. Julia says, Barbatos Rex just did a video about thinning lacquer paints. I thought it was good. Well, that's cool. So check it out. If you can find that, Giovanni, look up Barbatos Rex and see if you can find his video on thinning. That would be good. I'll put that on the screen so everybody can see that. Anyway, we're just about done here, boys and girls. Yeah, we're at 7:30, so I might as well call this one a day. Still got to finish the tracks, do a little bit more weathering underneath, and then I got to put some antennas in. I got to finish the guns. I got to start painting these figures too. So that might be what we'll do next week. We'll see where I'm at when next Wednesday rolls around. So let's go back up here. I'll take off the shades. All right. So, gosh, thank you for joining in and everybody that chimed in and came into the chat here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Like I say all the time, you guys really help support me, and I appreciate it. And for those of you that just want to watch and don't say anything, that's great. I appreciate all your support. And you guys get to see sometimes things happen while you're building a model. Sometimes things break and you got to fix it. So, you know, thanks for being part of that process. So let me go down through the list here. Again, I know there's going to be some comments rolling in. Let me hide that. George says, good night, Mike and everyone. Good time as usual. Thank you, George. I appreciate it. But I'm going to go through the list here. So let's start at the top. George was in first at 6 p.m. Giovanni, a close second. Julius came in after that. Then we had Nick. Moving on down, KZLC was in. Thank you. And then we had Phil Artiste Studio. He was in after that. Let's see. Anybody missed anybody? Oh, KZ, Phil. And then we got Old School. This guy won't. So we got. Oh, there's Artiste again. Yeah, so pretty much the same guys at that point. Everybody was introduced and talking for the whole show. Get down here, and then we had somebody pop in from Kick, wanting to give me millions of viewers, apparently millions of followers. Oh my God! All I got to do is partner up with this guy. I'm sure it's going to cost me money. So you know what? How about no? Not right now. Anyway, hopefully we help you out, Giovanni. I know you're learning some new stuff every day, doing this, you know, with paint and stuff like that, learning sometimes the hard way, it seems like. Unfortunately, that's the way it is sometimes. But anyway, Julia, say good night. See you, Nick. Thanks for joining everybody, and we'll catch you guys next time. Be good humans, please. Please. It's not hard. But anyway, we'll see you guys next time.